Welcome to Forest Chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode we're talking with John Ablett about the Featured Wood Gallery and Museum. John came to Australind over 30 years ago, and he's had the Featured Wood Gallery and Museum operating for about 30 years now. Welcome to Forest Chat, John.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for inviting me onto your podcast. We moved here 38 years ago from Scarborough. We moved down here and built in Leschnell.
Can you tell me something about the Featured Wood Gallery and Museum?
Well, I'd been in the building game, we've been in it 5 generations, and I worked outside for all these years and decided the sun had beaten down on me enough and given me a hammering, I'd do something a bit more mellower. So I decided to get into making furniture, and that from that furniture making, I went on to wood carving and a lot of the other bits and pieces that I'd like to have a crack at, and put the nail bag away and the nail gun and enjoy it instead of the hard yakka of being outside.
And it's a very different game, what you went into compared to what you had been doing?
Oh, without a doubt. Not any lighter in a way, because when you're making big tables and whatever and you're milling and you go out on site with a portable sawmill and mills huge big trees up, and some of these slabs, at 5 metres long by 1400 wide, it's pretty hard yakka, yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty significant size. How much would they weigh? There must be...
Oh, God. That'd be, a couple of 100 kilo, easy. Yeah, some of them are, yeah. So some of the logs were, around 3.5, 4 tonne, and you can get 10 to 15 slabs out of it if you mill it properly. And then it takes 2 years to dry, if not more. But we have a solar kiln here as well as air dry.
Right, so you're taking virgin wood out of the bush, basically, or you have been. I'm not sure if you're still doing that, but
not allowed to.
No, because they basically shut the industry down, didn't they? So everything that you're working with now is basically already down.
Well, after 30 years, and you air dry it as well as kiln dry it. We have a moisture meter to make sure that when we start on any pieces, any furniture or whatever, that it's the right moisture content, because you don't want to get up and walking out of someone's dining room because the timber's that green and a little warp. And there are too many people out there that are not making sure the timber's dry, and it'll cup and bow very quickly.
Right. And how do you know all this stuff?
Well, when you've been in the game as long as our family, like I said earlier, in 5 generations, you can learn on the run, but it's just something that it's in the blood. It's in the blood. And you buy moisture meters and different things. And I have people come in and ask me, what sort of wood is that? Is that dry or is that green? What can I do with it? And you've got to do a lot of research online, of course. I'd say to people, don't quote me on this, because they can come back and really have a crack at you because I've said that's dry and it's actually not. So I've got a moisture meter. It's a $600 little thing that you put on the timber, and it'll impregnate down through sound, through the feel of and the moisture. So if you've got a 40 mil slab, it'll actually tell you right down to 30, then you turn it over and do the other 10 that you've missed. So it gives you a great idea how, and after doing as long as I have, you can tell whether timber's green or dry.
I understand that from a bit of my history. My dad had a precast concrete set up, and we'd make a batch of slabs, so basically just a flat concrete tile in effect, and you could see the age difference across each batch as it's drying out, and you can see the difference in thicknesses and just by eye from knowing what you're looking at.
I think when you're milling, it's a wonderful. You're value adding. I mean, a lot of our timbers come from the shires when they're doing roads and whatever, and property developments. They'll give you a call, and I think when you get the opportunity to bring the log into the mill yard, and you're milling it. And these beautiful bits of wood, I always wet it first and take photos of each log, so then I can show the client down the track what colour that timber is when it's been lacquered, because that's the exact process. It's the same colour will come up when you put water on it and when you put a lacquer on it.
That's that nice glossy finish that you get on them.
Yeah. The only issue is now with the 2-pack lacquers, it's a bit dodgy. You've got to start using a more environmentally approved product, which is better for your health as well and for your client. Yeah.
Onto the gallery side of things?
The museum and the gallery side of it?
Yeah.
The gallery side of it, we opened the gallery next door on a half-acre block that we purchased 35 years ago. But the gallery was with a workshop. The gallery was out the front and the workshop was down the back. But we started getting buses and that, and the gallery was that small. People had to go outside to change their mind. So then we decided later on, with the help of my wife's parents, they gave us a loan and we bought this acre here next door where we're having our discussion now, our talk. So that's when I decided I must say we, there's my wife and I decided that we'd go the next level and build this 300 square metre gallery and museum. And it's evolved from there and created a bit of a monster in a way, because 28 years now, 7 days a week, it's like owning a deli. Because you're in tourism, you've got to be open certain hours, and weekends are one of those criteria.
Yeah, I imagine weekends tend to be the busiest, and is summer the busiest?
Oh, for sure, without a doubt. Yeah. But tourism. We're not solely on tourism, because we do a lot of bus tours, but general public that comes through as well. We're reliant on locals, and I've had a very good support base, very loyal customers that have come back and, after all the years we've been here. But now getting on a bit age-wise, we all slow up a bit, and I'm not going to stop yet. It's called rigor mortis if you stop. I've made my coffin, but I haven't made the lid because I'm not ready. Everyone has a bit of a laugh about that, but that's the way it is. I think people retire too young these days.
There's certainly plenty you can do.
Oh, yeah. What do they say? If you've got a job that you love, you'll never do a hard day's work in your life. And that's the way and look, it's lovely to get the accolades too when people come in. It's nice to people to walk in and say, our visitor, wow. And that was the main thing that I wanted, was the wow factor. Very important.
Even when I walked in, you've got a little table island here in the middle of your office area, and it's got some amazing cutting boards, and they're a wow just on their own.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about those.
Well, I think we've all, over the years, people have gone to the plastic cutting boards. Now, that's a no-no, because you're working away and you're cutting, and those fibres will get into your food after a while. Where you start using, timber cutting boards have been around. If you have a look at, they use chewit. All the butchers use chewits in their butcher shops. Big, huge, round parts they got off the trunks of these, 12 to 1300 wide. And chewit's one of the hardest timbers in the world. And they use that because when they're chopping their meat up, health-wise, it's fine. It's not a problem. So we always oil, quite obviously. A lot of people say, do you put linseed oil on your chopping boards? Well, that's a no-no. That's for cricket bats, not for doing chopping boards. We use grapeseed oil or orange oil. Olive oil and vegetable oil is all right, but it gets thicker and thicker over age as you're revamping your timber, your chopping board. And
it builds up thickness?
If you have a look at that oil, it's very thick, quite thick, where the other two I mentioned are quite thin. So I always say that to our customers when they come in and buy one of because our boards are, we get Americans come in and they buy and hang them on the wall because they like them that much.
Well, they do look great.
Yeah.
They've got the It looks like the bark on either
Yeah,
end of
yeah.
them.
This
And
is the outer. This is your sapwood, your outside part. Then you go into your pith, which is your heart. So there's an example there. And there's not many old growth jarrahs around. Jarrah only grows to 400-year-old. So when you get your pink paddock jarrah in, which a lot of it's changed colour from the superphosphate that the farmers have put on, because it's a chemical. And these young paddock jarrahs have gone, wow, I like this stuff. So off they go. They'll grow a lot quicker and lighter in colour.
right, because they haven't got the same supply of
No,
things
not
that
anymore.
colour.
They've locked the forest down from January last year. They had to do something. I think a lot of people don't realise when Bunbury Jetty closed, why Bunbury Jetty was built was that thousands and millions of tonnes of jarrah left our shores to go for railway sleepers through South Africa and Rhodesia. And you look how far apart a railway sleeper is, about every 1 foot or something like that, 2 feet. So millions of those went over. The underground railways in London was lined with jarrah, used for air raid shelters in World War II. The roads in London, jarrah was put down and then the gravel over the top. So we're paying the price now. Hopefully it's not too late to look after our forest better.
So that's the supply side. There's some really nice pieces there, and there's an amazing array of art style pieces that you've got here as well.
Well, you'll find artists. I call myself an artist now because I got out of the building game many years ago, 30 odd years ago. You need a challenge, and I decided to get into carving. Well, that's a challenge, because if you look at a potter on a potter's wheel and you're turning away and the bit of clay wobbles and falls off, you can start again. Same with a painter, with an artist on a canvas. You can wipe it and start again. You can't do that when you're carving with timber. So you've got to learn slowly, which you learn on pine. You don't ruin good quality timber. And then I started getting into the ocean themes, which was very important being around this area. I remember many, many years ago going down to Albany when the whaling station was still processing whales, and it was disgraceful to see and sad to see what had happened. We're talking about 69, 70 when it closed down, and seeing these humpbacks and southern right whales being processed and coming up the ramp, and the flies, the smell and the chunks out of the whales from the white pointers when they were... So I really had a thing about, and I've been in the ocean all my life and around the ocean, I thought, well, I'll get into that. And now, hence, one of our biggest sellers are my ocean themes, the humpbacks and the, you've got all your, the stingrays. I'm right into the stingrays, the eagle rays and the manta rays, of course. We've got over 35,000 humpbacks and southern right whales passing there every year now, which is fantastic. So I do my bit, and our customers just love the ocean themes. I think it gives me a challenge every day. So yeah, that's very enjoyable.
You've got a range of different implements and that sort of thing as well that you've produced.
Oh yeah, we just, your cheese knives and stuff. A lot of my work now is for the tourism market. When the tourists come over and fly over or get the train over from over east, they can't take a lot of stuff back. So we do a heap of cheese knives with all our different timbers for the handles, and turn a lot of the Banksia vases up, and wood turning was actually got me started off. My wife started 40 years ago wood turning up in Scarborough, out the back shed, and I thought, well, if she can have a crack at it, I'm going to. And then I got hooked on that first, the wood turning, and then so many people are doing that now, I just needed new challenges. Yeah, so it's hard to explain while we're talking here, Paul, on your podcast. It's a place you've physically got to come and look at. We've got our websites and whatever, and our Facebook pages, but it's hard to explain. As you're looking around going, oh, what should we talk about next? It's just, yeah, there's so much in here of different varieties of woodwork.
There certainly is. And then you've got the museum side as well. That's a very special thing that you've put together there.
it's something that I think, because my pop went to war, World War One, my dad World War Two, and then of course you had your Vietnam, which was my age group. I'm 74 this year, so I was in the draft and got picked, but Whitlam came in and abolished national service. But I still have friends of mine that went away and served that come into the museum. We sit down and have a couple of beers and they sort of loosen up a bit about what they sadly had to do. And I've put it together to educate and mentor the younger generation of the sacrifices made, how lucky they are. They're not entitled. It's the men and women that lost their lives before us. They're the entitled ones, you know.
They earned it.
They earned it, for sure. So the museum's really quite a powerful and a place to go through. We still get the bus tours and we get the retirement villages in, and I do mention to the elder ones the demographics of 85s to the 90s that it is confronting, and most of them go through, where others may sit out in the gallery and wait until we've come out, but it takes about an hour to do it, and yeah, it's very educational.
And there's a lot of stuff in there. You've got some family history. You've got generations in there. You've got
very much so. The family photo of the Abletts, which is quite a large, blown up photo on the wall. It's probably, I think it's about 3.5 metres by about 4 metres deep. So it's a big photo of my family. They came out from England 1838. And I look at them and how hard it was to be a chippy back then compared to the technology now. We call them lithium batteries, everything's run by battery. But when I first started my apprenticeship at 15, we didn't have nail guns or anything. Everything had to be done by hand, nailed by hand. And that was hard yakka. We're a bit spoilt now.
Yeah, definitely. But they still achieved amazing joinery and
incredible workmanship. The trade, you're a proper tradie. We have contractors now for, if you're a carpenter, you did everything. You did your grano work, you did your gibrock, you did your joinery and everything else. We're here, we have contractors. I think that's the union sort of come in over the 40, 50 odd years, 60 years ago and said, we'll now determined that other people can do and sort of spread the load out a bit, because there were lack of tradies that could do all that. So they specifically started to go, you'll be a grano worker, you'll be a joinery, you'll be a roof carpenter, or you'll be a fixing carpenter. When I started my time, we learnt to do the lot. And that's a hell of a bonus to be multi-skilled.
For sure.
If you want to build your own house.
I'll bet. Did you end up doing that?
Oh, very much so. We bought our 2.5, 3 acres down at Leschnold, and we came down from Perth every weekend for 2 years to build our house out of Caraboola limestone. And that was a rarity in the Shire of Harvey. They knew nothing about it, and they didn't really agree, or didn't want to give us a permit to do it until we went through a lot of procedure, a lot of bullshit really to go through it all, but we were one of the first to do that, and it was a lot of hard work, but we brought our kids up out at Leschnold on acreage, and it's just overlooking the estuary. What more could you want?
Yeah, we were out there this morning. There was a tad on the chilly side, there was a mist in the air, and it was just amazing.
We've been very spoiled. I think a lot of people are moving down this way now, and that's great. It is what it is. Perth's just getting really, really congested and chock-a-block, and it's still a lovely place to live down here. Every day I wake up, I'm always whistling, because every day to me is a bonus. I had some very hard times as a young fella, and I have a twin brother, and he joined the church to become a minister of the church, and I was a bit of a rat bag, and I saw the light one day and decided to pull my head in and grow up, and I played a lot of sport in my life, and managed to meet a wonderful wife in Helen, and two beautiful kids. My son Ben Ablett, he being the Ablett name, he decided to get into footy big time. He's in Melbourne playing there, and he was head boy at Harvey Ag College, and my daughter lives up in Perth. Yeah, we've been blessed, but it's been hard work. People tend to look at what we've achieved here and say, you're a lucky bugger. Well, lucky's when you win lotto. And we didn't win lotto. We worked very, very hard, and still do. 29, 30 years, 7 days a week. Wow, it's hard yakka.
Yeah, that's a lot. Keeping everything together and available on time when people are showing up, and that, I won't say all sorts of times, you've got opening hours, but showing up probably at times that you thought, oh, okay, we're done for the day.
Well, when you live on site, Paul, you're never away. But we had to move here when we opened the museum because of what it stands for. And, there's a lot of things in there that, like weaponry, but it's all been rendered and deactivated or die-cast replicas. But it's still, security-wise, you've got to live here. So we have 2 Rottweilers we don't feed. And it's like you just said earlier about when you live on site, people turn up. We do have hours, 10 till 4, but I can't help myself. I'm up at 8 o'clock with the gate open and closed at 5. My wife will go and shut it, and I'll go and open it again because I just love meeting people. I've got to meet the most wonderful people from all around the world. And to have them come in, and I think any artist or sculptor, painter, or doesn't matter what you do, if you're good at it, the biggest compliment is when they purchase something off you. Then you know that you've left an impression.
Absolutely.
Or an heirloom.
We don't have enough heirlooms, do we?
No, and we're a very young country. I mean, I get the English come in and I look at an Aboriginal artefact in the museum and I say, that's Ridgy Didge. And they say, what on earth does that mean? I say, it's original. And they say, well, you come over to our country one day and you're talking in the 15 and 1600s, you've got buildings still up. And that's why when you go through our museum, it's a very young museum compared to over there. And the museum side of it, it's quite you've got the Native American, you've got the Noongar. These are exhibits. There's 8 major exhibits. My family, and then the Ned Kelly story. I talk to the young ones to stand up for your rights, but within the law. And if you are being bullied, walk away. The bullies want you to respond. There's also the Native American, and like I said earlier, the Noongar, they walk the same paths. The Native American, our Noongar, they looked after the land. We're having a good crack at destroying it. And then there's the real important one is the Light Horse, 10th Light Horse, the Gallipoli campaign. So the school tours, I've taught them all properly how to shake hands, because when they went out of the trenches, they shook each other's hand and said, goodbye, cobber. And they shook each other's hand properly, because it was called respect. And that's how I was told and taught as a young fella. I remember when I started my apprenticeship at 15, I made a bulls up, and my boss was a little Hungarian guy, looked like Charles Bronson, and he gave me a belt and knocked me over round the back of the ear. I went home and told Dad, and he gave me a belt as well. In other words, toughen up, and that's the way it was.
That's it. Having that respect is super important.
And that's why I enjoy working with the young people. When the buses do come in, Anzac Week I normally get quite a few come through, young'uns. One year we had 200, 250 kids come through. I was worn out by the end of the week. But the change and the difference that made, I had parents coming back and saying, thank you for talking to my kids about, I look at the demographics, Paul, I don't go into it as much as it was a slaughter. I don't go into it too heavily about atrocities and what happened, but they've got to realise how lucky they are to be here and to listen, because if they don't, I put them back on the bus. And then I'll get a parent will come back and say, why did you put my son back on the bus? I say, well, I've got more cameras here than Channel 9. Do you want to have a look at how he played up? And then they apologise. It's very, very rarely. Most students will want to listen and learn, and they leave here with a different outlook, hopefully, for the future. If it's how you say it, it's, I watch my language. It's very hard when you've got one smarty pants playing up. But anyway, that's the biggest buzz I get out of the museum, is the mentoring and the educating.
It's a very valuable thing for the community to help set them on the right path, isn't it?
Yeah, as much as it can be confronting, we must never forget. And I think, and I look at the world today and I'm going, wow, we haven't learned a lot. Yeah, I'm very careful how I talk to the young'uns about that. You don't want to keep bringing it up. We really hope they don't have to go through what our forebears, what they went through. It's some of the stories I hear from this 103-year-old gentleman that came in. It was just a joy. He's standing there on his Zimmer frame and telling me about his escapades as a front gunner on a Liberator over New Guinea in the Australian Air Force. And he's a very sprightly man, and I've since heard that he's still going, and that was 6 months ago he was in here. So that's the buzz I get. I do a lot of work with the retirement villages come in. Most of them, the demographics are 80 plus. And I sit them down in the museum because they all quite obviously aging and they can't stand, they've got their Zimmer frames or whatever. And they start asking me a few questions and I just say, stop, I want to ask you guys some questions. So I go to each individual elder and ask them what they did in their lives and what did they achieve. And they get very emotional over that because no one asks them that anymore. They say we're in retirement villages, we don't even see our families anymore. And it's sad to hear that. And as the 103-year-old was leaving, he said, John, have you ever thought about how you're going to feel about how we feel today at our age? I said, no one's ever asked me that. So it was quite a pertinent question to ask. Sort of frightened me a bit.
Yeah, well, it's an amazing thing that you're doing, John. Helping.
The rewards I get is after I see those people leaving, I just think, wow, it's fantastic that they're still alive to be able to pass those stories on. And I still want to do that. 74 this year in September, I still want to do it. Technology may be able to help me on certain displays and put visuals up. Because, after 2 or 3 buses, you get a bit tired after a while. But with technology now, we may have to go to screens and get someone to come in and help me out. I'm just old school.
There's a lot of benefits in that, though. Like, people are built for that human connection.
Yeah.
It makes it personal. It makes it what it is.
I just hope that when people leave the museum and walk out, they've taken something away. Most of them are very good, and I will get from people around the world will send me an email or something, or a letter, or a card or a postcard saying thank you very, very much for the time you spent explaining and talking to us and being friendly. Very rarely I'll get a tourist or a visitor in here that's grumpy, because I'm thinking, you're on a holiday. I don't know why you're unhappy. You should, be enjoying your life. Every now and then you'll get the odd one, but no. So yeah, it's been a journey, one hell of a journey, and hopefully it'll keep going.
We've talked quite a bit about what it means that you have this featured wood gallery and museum, and also about how other people experience the museum as well.
I suppose it's like a very large man cave when you think about it. And there are a lot of people in their 40s and 50s now have man caves. You know, their barbecue area out the back, they'll start buying things that they can put on the wall, and I think it's important that they all do that, because if it's a relic from the past or something from the future, well, good, at least it's a talking point. You can sit around, have a few beers and a bit of a yarn and say, oh, I went to the Featured Wood Gallery and I saw some stuff that I'd like to do. I'm always, because I have a lot of relics outside, and as where we're talking now, Paul, we're in the gallery side of it. Outside, I've got a lot of farm implements and other items that I've made, and wooden pieces and old relics. And that's a full-time job, virtually looking after that as well. We live on the premises. So first impressions are very important. When people hop off a bus or walk into our establishment through the gates, they go, wow. And they always say to me and my wife, this is so clean and tidy. And I said, so it should be. We're representing this area. Now, if it looked like a bag of phlegm, or it looked like, sorry, that didn't sound right, but if it looks rather shitty, how can that be helping our area for tourism and whatever? So I'm always focused on that first impression. Very important.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You almost don't know where to look because there's so many different things out.
Yeah.
That's just crossing the car park.
It's caused a nightmare for the family, because you've got to think about it as my demographics now, you start, what on earth's going to happen to it all? But I live for the moment. If I was worried about that, I wouldn't keep...
if you're worried about that, you'd build a lid for your coffin.
I've got someone else to do that, and the coffin's going to be out of MDF. I'm not using good Jarrah. There's a lot of aeroplanes in here, in both the museum and the gallery, because I think my dad was in the Air Force and he'd lost both of his legs later in life, what had happened during the war, and he always spoke about the planes, and aviation intrigues me. How on earth do they get off the ground? It's still, and I look at the seagull, how it flies, and of course that's how it all evolved. And as we're talking now, Paul and I are looking up in the roof, and we have where it all first started.
Yeah, one of the very first gliders.
Yeah, that's it. Leonardo da Vinci, he got one of his mates to strap some wings on and jump off a cliff, and of course that didn't work, so they had to go back to the drawing board. Yeah, so I put a function on just recently for, I thank a lot of the first responders and also all the Lions clubs. I let them through and we do tours and there's a no charge there that we do. And a few weeks back we put this function on for the Brunswick Lions. About 35 came out and put the fireboxes out the back. We have a barbecue area for the bus tours. And at the end of the evening they presented me with a cheque, and I was quite humbled by it because I put the function on for them to thank them. And I think a lot of them hadn't been here before, and they realised the work that I'm doing with, a lot of the people that are less off than us. MS, I do a lot with them, and Camp Quality, Riding Disabled. And I'm always passing pieces of my work on to auction off, and that's a great feeling you get when you've done a piece worth $400 and they get $800-900 for it, and you go, wow. So the money that was given to me, because I've told most people I'm going to go into the aviation side of it, in the front part where the gallery is now, where we're talking, and I rang Qantas up, and I want to get hold of a Qantas air hostess uniform and a Qantas pilot's uniform. And I've got 2 mannequins over on the other side of our business, and I'll be putting the uniforms on them, and I've currently have a gentleman to make me the first jet-propelled plane that Qantas flew, and I'll have that. It's probably have a 2-metre wingspan on it, so it'll be quite big. So then that sort of brings it more into modern aviation. At the moment, we have more of the warbirds, but I think I'd soften the load a bit on, it's not all about the wars. Aviation how many people fly every day on a plane. So I want to go back to that, and I think it'll be great to have that in here.
Yeah, that'd be a very interesting addition.
Yeah. Well, I think you could put Ansett in there, but no, I think they folded not very nicely or whatever happened. But Qantas have offered me a 15-year lease on ever I want from the big museum they have in Queensland, with the jumbo and everything sitting in there. And found out what I was doing, and they said, we could fill up your front room. And I said, no, I'd rather purchase it, because you don't want to be leaving a headache for your family afterwards and all the paperwork. And so apparently there's a lot of air hostesses from the past and pilots that have got wardrobes full of uniforms. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see how we go.
Interesting that they're still out there and people are willing to share them, I guess. So, John, if someone wanted to start up an operation like this, what would it take?
Well, good luck to them. I think it spooks people a lot. I think you wouldn't take on something like this unless you're motivated. I'm a pretty hyper sort of a guy. I've been doing 7 days a week now. Even when I was building roofing up in Perth, I still worked on weekends and played footy and non-stop. You've really got to be dedicated, and the enthusiasm, if you haven't got it, it's not going to work. Like I said earlier, if you're doing something you enjoy, you'll never do a hard day's work in your life. But I had a triple fusion on my back 6 years ago, and that was a bit of a shock to me. And I had to, I was off for a very long time and got depression and whatever, but I was still involved in this place. That kept me going. I had great family around me and good friends, so that kept me going. But yeah, you've got to, I try and keep fit. I'm always bike riding and involved with the HBL footy club and always been active. And I think if you're going to take on something like this, you've got to have some knowledge on the past and have access to a lot of the relics and everything. But if you're talking about the museum side of it, the woodwork side of it, well, there's thousands of artists out there, painters, very rarely many make it. You've got to be... I remember when I first started and I took a couple of my pieces down to Margaret River, one of the galleries. And when I took it in, this guy said to me, "You're kidding. Come back when you know what you're doing." Now that was a real kick in the guts to me, but I needed that constructive criticism because I thought it was great, but it wasn't. And I've still got that. I've still got those two pieces as a reminder of your progress you need to make. You've got to handle criticism in all walks of life, anything you do. And if you don't do that, you're never going to achieve in a business like this. Yeah, it's you've got to be like an encyclopedia. Like you've got to... One of the other things I do, Paul, is I make urns for people. And that's quite confronting when I get a family come in with the plastic container from Merrill Barrett's and say, make me a nice urn.
So you would make a wooden urn?
Yes, I make wooden urns, all different shapes and sizes, and it's very rewarding when you see them return and pick up their loved one's ashes and to know that you've looked after them. Why I always ask the name of the deceased to make sure I'm talking to them while I'm doing their particular piece for them. So this place we've created here is like a hairdresser's salon. People will come in and they'll open up to us because it's got this quite friendly atmosphere when you walk in. It's a very soothing... I'm not saying that in the museum, but in the gallery, I've tried to make it aesthetically pleasing and rewarding for people to come in, and some will sit here for, especially on a hot day with the air conditioning going, they'll sit here all bloody day because it's nice and cool.
But there's also stuff to look at every which way you look.
Too much, because there's going to become a time in my journey where I don't know whether my son wants to take over. He's too busy. He'll be 28 in August. It was my dream to have my son take over, but that was mine, not his. And what right do I have to? I would have loved to have done his apprenticeship with me, but he's done it with another mate as a chippy. So, and then he went to Melbourne 3.5 years ago. And yes, who knows? We're up in the air at the moment, but we're now getting people coming and picking pieces out that they'd like to purchase later on, which is good. So I've stopped the bus tour work, like the manta rays, the sharks, the stingrays, and all the ocean themes. I'm doing that. It's smaller. It's easier for me to do at my age now. And I've given away all the big furniture. I've got another guy I send all that work to. Still got a mill yard full of timber, which it's called superannuation. Yeah. Well, now the forests are closed up, So I'm just trying to get my permit to sell firewood, so then I can get rid of all the offcuts. And yes, so who knows where the road's going from here, but I'm still enjoying myself and having fun.
And doing great work.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, John, for being on Forest.chat. It's been amazing to come down and see just the incredible variety and quality of the gear that you've got here. It's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Paul, for giving me the opportunity to go on your podcast. First time I've done this. We've had other opportunities with papers and whatever. But no, this is good, and I hope we get something out of it. You get some listeners for it, and thanks very much again.
You've been listening to Forest.chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode we've been talking with John Ablett about the featured wood gallery and museum. Remember, there are 4 ways to get involved with Forest.chat. Share the domain Forest.chat with your friends and family and people you meet. When you sign up for emails, you get advance notice of episodes. Listen to the episodes at forest.chat/episodes. If you know somebody who does something interesting, book an interview at forest.chat/interview. If you want to support a local business, book an advert at forest.chat/advert. I'm looking forward to joining you with our next guest. Until then, enjoy making it happen.